My brother betrayed me with my wife, and it didn't stop there. I'm 35, my younger brother Alex is 32, and until last year I would have called him my best friend. We grew up sharing a room, a beat-up car, and the same, us against the world attitude. Our dad left when we were kids. Mom worked nights. I helped raise Alex, and he never let me forget it. On his 18th birthday, he hugged me and said, "You're basically my real dad and my big brother." My wife Emma came into the picture 5 years ago. She was smart, funny, the first person who made my life feel stable. I introduced her to Alex on our third date because that's what I did with anyone important. He charmed her immediately. They teased each other like old friends, and it made me happy. It felt like the family I'd always wanted finally existed in one room. For a while, life was good. I worked in IT. Emma was a nurse. Alex bounced around between jobs, always about to catch a big break. When he had money troubles, I let him crash on our couch for a few weeks. Those weeks turned into months. Emma didn't love the arrangement, but she tried to be understanding. "He's your brother," she'd say. "I get it." Looking back, that's when the lines started blurring. Alex and Emma cooked together sometimes when I worked late. They watched TV, shows I wasn't into. Inside jokes started popping up, little comments I didn't fully understand. It bugged me now and then, but I trusted both of them. If a thought crossed my mind, I'd shut it down with, "Don't be paranoid. This is family." One night about a year ago, I came home early from a late shift. I texted Emma but she hadn't responded. She was probably in the shower. When I opened the front door, the apartment was quiet, lights dimmed. I heard low voices from the living room and walked in, smiling, ready to joke about them watching another show without me. They weren't on the couch. I froze at the doorway. Emma and Alex were sitting way too close together on the floor, backs against the couch. Their hands flew apart like magnets, suddenly switched off when they heard me. The air felt thick and wrong. "Hey," I said slowly. "What's going on?" "Nothing," Emma said too fast. "We were just talking." Alex stood up, laughing shakily. "Dude, you scared us. Thought you were working late." I wanted to believe them, so badly that my brain offered me excuses. Maybe I'd imagined the way they pulled apart. Maybe people just sat close when they talked. But a heavy, cold feeling settled in my stomach and refused to leave. Over the next few weeks, the unease grew. I catch them going quiet when I walked into a room. Emma locked her phone more often. Alex started taking long walks at weird hours. I told myself I was stressed. That grief over our mom's recent passing was making me suspicious. Then one afternoon my laptop died, and I grabbed Emma's tablet to check an email. We shared the device. There was no password. A message notification popped up in a chat app one didn't recognize. The contact name was just a heart emoji. The preview said, "He's leaving now. Come over." I opened the app. The thread that loaded wasn't graphic, but it didn't need to be. There were messages about missing each other. Last night was amazing. Inside jokes about me being oblivious. Timelines that matched nights I'd worked overtime. Photos were cropped tight. Nothing explicit, just enough to prove they'd been together in places I knew I'd never been. The one that hit hardest was from Emma. "I feel guilty, but with him I feel seen. With my husband, I just feel like a project he's trying to fix." Alex had replied, "He'll be fine. He always lands on his feet. We deserve to be happy too." My hands shook so badly, I nearly dropped the tablet. My first instinct was to run into the living room and scream. Instead, I took screenshots, emailed them to myself, and left the apartment without saying a word. I drove around aimlessly for an hour, then ended up parked outside the old house where Alex and I grew up. The porch light we'd broken playing soccer was still cracked. I sat there, remembering all the times he'd said, "I got your back, always," and wondering when that had stopped being true. That night I didn't go home. I booked a cheap motel, sent Emma a text saying I was staying with a coworker because of an early meeting, and spent the night staring at the ceiling. I needed a plan that wasn't just yelling and breaking things. The next morning I called our cousin Maya. She's a lawyer, and one of the few people who's blunt enough to tell me the truth, even when I don't want to hear it. I told her everything. She stayed quiet, then said, "Come to my office. Bring the screenshots." She looked at the evidence, then at me. "There's no coming back from this without serious work," she said. "But before you decide about the relationship, you need to protect yourself. You're on the lease, you pay most of the bills. Your brother is technically a guest. Don't give either of them a chance to flip this on you." With her help, we drafted a separation plan for Emma and a notice for Alex. Legally, I couldn't just throw him out without warning, but I could state clearly that he needed to leave by a certain date. That evening, I went home earlier than usual. They were both there, sitting at opposite ends of the couch, their body language stiff. Maybe they'd sensed something had changed. "We need to talk," I said. Emma's eyes flicked to the tablet on the coffee table. Alex stared at me, face too casual. I placed printed copies of a few messages on the coffee table. I saw everything. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Emma started crying instantly. Alex swore under his breath and said, "You went through her private messages? That's messed up." "What's messed up?" I said, voice shaking but steady. "Is you sleeping with my wife and using my mother's funeral as your excuse to comfort each other." One message had been from the night of Mom's memorial. "I'm glad you're here. I couldn't get through this without you," with heart emojis back and forth. While I'd been greeting relatives and holding it together, they'd been building something behind my back. Emma tried to grab my hands. "It wasn't planned," she said. "We were both grieving, and it just happened. I was lonely. You were so focused on Alex and the funeral. That's your defense." I asked. "That I was focused on burying our mother and taking care of my brother, the one I thought I could trust." Alex finally spoke. "Look, man, I know this looks bad. It is bad," I cut in. "You're my brother. If some random guy had done this, I'd be furious. But you knew everything about me. You knew exactly where to hit." He looked away. We didn't mean to fall for each other. The word fall made my stomach twist. They hadn't just had a one-time lapse. They were talking like it was a love story. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, pulling out the documents. "Emma, these are separation papers. You can take them to your own lawyer if you want, but we're done. Alex, this is written notice. You have 2 weeks to move out. After that, if you're still here, the police get involved." Emma sobbed harder. "Please don't do this. We can go to counseling. We can fix it." You two can go to counseling, I said. Separately. Together. I don't care. But I'm not staying married to someone who looks at my brother and thinks. Backup plan. Alex tried to argue about not having money or a place to go. I reminded him of the times I paid his rent, helped him find jobs, the loan I'd given him that he never repaid. You already cashed in everything I owed you, I said. We're square now. Word about what happened spread, quietly through the family. Some relatives tried to stay neutral, but most of them were disgusted with both of them. My aunt, who used to dote on Alex, called me and said, I love him, but he needs to live with the consequences. You did right by yourself. Over the next few months, the fallout kept coming. Emma and Alex tried being together officially for a while, but it didn't last. Without the secret, stolen moments, their connection seemed less magical. They fought about money, about guilt, about how everyone looked at them at family events, when they were invited at all. At one point, Alex showed up at my new apartment. Maya had helped me find a place closer to work, with a bag under his eyes and a bunch of I'm sorry flowers. I stepped outside but didn't invite him in. I messed up, he said. She and I are over. I was in a bad place. I don't expect you to forgive me, but you're my brother. Can we at least talk? Talking is what we should have done before you decided my wife was your solution, I said. I'm glad you're starting to see it for what it was, but I'm not ready to pretend we're okay. Not now, maybe not ever. He nodded, tears in his eyes, and left. I watched him go with a strange mix of sadness and relief. Here's the part that didn't stop there. The betrayal didn't just end my marriage and my relationship with my brother. It also shattered how I saw myself. I realized how much of my identity had been wrapped up in being the reliable one, the guy who holds everyone else together. Somewhere in all that, I'd forgotten to protect myself. So I started therapy. I learned that boundaries aren't just lines you draw around other people, they're also commitments to yourself. I promised myself that next time I'd listen to my gut when something fell off, instead of gaslighting myself into thinking I was overreacting. I also built a different kind of support system. Coworkers who invited me to game nights, a neighbor who knocked when she saw my lights on at 2 a.m. for the third night in a row, a men's group at a local community center where we talked, awkwardly at first, about betrayal and divorce and what it means to start over in your mid-30s or less. Emma and I finalized the divorce. She moved to another city. Alex is trying to rebuild his life elsewhere too. I don't stalk their social media. I don't need to know who they're with now. If there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's that knowing every detail doesn't always equal safety. Sometimes I still drive past the old neighborhood where Alex and I played basketball until the streetlights came on. I remember the kid who said he'd always have my back and wonder when that boy turned into a man who could look at my life and see something he was entitled to take. But then I go back to my own place, a small, quiet apartment with my own couch, my own schedule, and no secrets in the next room, and I breathe a little easier. If you've ever been betrayed by someone who knew you better than anyone else, you're not weak for being hurt. You're not stupid for trusting. You just love people who didn't know how to love you back in the same way. Share one line of your story in the comments, or just drop a broken heart 2 men holding hands if any of this feels familiar. And if you want more real stories about family, boundaries, and what rebuilding actually looks like, hit subscribe and stay with me. Maybe the next one will make you feel a little less alone.